So, in summary then, the sanctuary of God is depicted as a boat or a chariot and interlinks conceptually with the government. So the chariots of the gods, the boat of the gods, the sanctuary of the gods, the ship of state, these are all interlinked and are concordant with an angelic mariner. Now, an earthly facsimile, the temple or vessel, mirrors a theoretical boat, one which is docked in heaven, and at a literal level confirms to the notion of religion. So in Latin we would say religare, which is to moor a ship, to bind back or to moor a ship, and is an exposition of worship, worship as in ship, referring to the angelic mariners, to this royal or angelic lineage. And if we look at the slide also, we can see here that there is this close connection between, as we said before, Saphina, a boat, and Seraph, which is a seraphim, an angelic seraphim. And this connection here is identified with the birth of man. And now in the top we see that there are also goats, and the goat is a signifier of Sirius, an ancient signifier of Sirius. So if we bring back all of these etymologies, we can see that Norse, a ship, is identified with Naus, a holy sanctuary. And again, these are more terms for religion, religare, to moor a ship, to bind back. Again, we can see that worship is identified with sabasma, which is devotion or worship. And again, are variations on the word for emperor within the Greek. Now, a theocratic institution, the government and its legislative body, is elected through an elite. So even the etymology to be elected is closely identified with the word elite, and this is an angelic or angelic bloodline, an autocratic bloodline. A royal ascendant, the overseer of state, is considered as angelic, specifically human angelic, and is an idea which is documented in the classical and Semitic languages. A collective authority, these universal elements are depicted as an invasive power, as we said before in the Greek, stratos, an army, from which human institutions are configured symbolically to the signifier of the boats, denoting variously the ship of state, which we said refers to government, and as the connotation also of the holy sanctuary. The temple sanctuary or the dock of law. So we see that there's a relationship with the dock of law, the sanctuary or the boat, the ship of state. These are all interconnected. So simultaneously, both a holy and a secular provenance, the jurisdiction of the state and its vested power claims its legal authority from intelligences which are supramundane. In other words, these intelligences are angelic. And as we have seen, of the insignia of the boat is an ancient marker of the angel. So we said before, Malak, an angel, Malak, a sailor, and is an entity that is likened to a sailor and is considered as a director of the ship of state. So in other words, is a controller, is a navigator of state. In almost every language, the angels are attached to the monarchical structures of state control and are iconic of the boat. A naval vessel, the state, and its vested powers are considered as subordinate to the veneration of deities. Perhaps even more intriguing in a constitutional and theocratic sense, theocratic meaning the rule of the gods, the angel is not only a directorate of state, a type of foreign power or occupying army, but is an agency typified as a cosmic sailor. So we're not only dealing here in an abstract sense that the ship of state is about governance and nautical governance, but we're actually dealing here with the concept that the angel itself originates from heaven and by very definition is a cosmic sailor. Now, in a modern context, the allusion to a volatant craft cross-references the phenomenon of the unidentified object. So again, we keep on coming back to this idea that the crew members of the naval vessels cross over with the idea of aliens which are deemed as being strange and which are crew members of vessels. And is a device that is compared to a spaceship. So the angels themselves originate from space, originate from heaven. Now, as with the angelic vessel, the occupants are alien in appearance and are considered as a source of profound knowledge. So whether we are dealing with the ET as an instigator of knowledge, a purveyor of knowledge. The same is also found with the angelic lineage as well. They are said to have imbued or to have given man sacred knowledge. So the juxtaposition between the boat and the angel is compatible, and we find it's an idea which is also found within Islamic teaching as well, and is explicitly stated in the Quran, discussed in Surah 55. Ar-Rahman, the Lord of Mercy, verse 24 reads, "Is are the moving ships that float high as mountains on the sea." So these ships or vessels are deemed as being large, are very large in size. They are compared to floating mountains. And we can see is remarkably consistent with modern accounts describing giant UFOs, which in some instances are said to be several miles across. Now, according to Islamic theory, these craft are piloted by strange beings that are considered as angelic, and are often described as bright in appearance, synonyms used to distinguish a seraph or a dragon. So when we refer to deities that are either flashing, that are bright, are radiant, then these terms imply a dragon, they imply the seraphim. So we can say that these angelic orders highlights the king's peculiar lineage, and this is a point we need to emphasize, that this angel or angelic bloodline is deemed as being alien or strange, and that the monarchical lineage itself originates from this angelic source. So if we go back into the Hebrew, we can emphasize this connection in particular between the Hebrew word sar, a captain, a prince, leader, or a commander. But we can say that the honorific title in Aramaic, sar, a commander, it originally specified a royal descendant, is a namesake which is correlated with sira, a boat. As we said before, we would have in the Greek archos, a ruler, hukos, which is a large cargo vessel, and we would have an archon, which is a type of angelic authority. So the namesake Sira, a boat, has this connotation of Zari, which is an angel, alien, or visitor, one who is strange. As we said before, the term would be closely equated in the Latin with hostis, which is the invading host or an invading army, an alien army, a foreign army. Now these are classifications implicit of an occupational force, an invading host tandem to the decree of kingship. So just to quickly sum up the information on the slide, we can see that the angelic lineage, here we have a depiction of the Virgin Mary. She is carrying a boat. We can see that the halo is shining behind her, which would signify the seraphim, the ones who are shining, the Elohim, the shining ones, the lofty ones. But we see again that the terminology Sar, a prince, is both a designation of Sira, a boat, and Zari, an angel or an alien. The other term would of course be Malak, an angel, Malak, a sailor, and Melek, a king. And Zari, an angel or an alien, is a term which is rendered of course in the Latin as hostis, a foreign or an alien military power, and as connotations in English of kingship. So in the Bible we can see that this surrogate progeny of the heavenly myriad, of the heavenly host, is identified specifically with the Prince of the Lord of the Host, and is sourced originally from the God of the Israelites. Ostensibly, the term Sarah, prince, is rendered in the King James's translation of the Bible as a commander. So this is important because in the Bible, the reference to the Prince of the Lord of the Host connotes that the bloodline refers to the bloodline of the Elohim, Yahweh. So he is a prince of Yahweh, but the term itself has been rendered as a commander, which obviously gives a slightly different connotation, that he is only just merely a commander of the host, not actually related to Yahweh Sabaoth, the commander of the naval vessel. So we can see here in the book of Joshua that there is this relationship between the commander, or as we said before, the correct translation is the prince of the host. So if we read Joshua, it is very interesting the connotations that are found within the passage. Joshua writes, "And it came to pass, when Joshua was in Jericho, that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, and there stood a man against him with his sword drawn in his hand." Now, a sworded entity connotes the cherubim, because the etymology cherubim is related to the etymology sword. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, Art thou for us or for our adversaries? So again, there is this wordplay here. Sar is an adversary, which is theoretical to an opponent of a naval commander. As we said, Sar, which is a naval commander. And he said, Nay, but as captain, as we said, this word really should be as prince of the host of the Lord. So he is a prince, not a commander or a captain, but a prince of the Lord. As we said before, the Hebrew word is sar, a prince or a leader of a vessel. In this context, sira, which is a boat, this is an angelic vessel. He said, I am now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the captain, literally prince, as we said, of the Lord of the host. So he fell on his face to the prince of the Lord of the host, and said unto Joshua, Loose thy shoe from off thy foot, for the place whereon thou standest is holy. So, to summarise, we can say that in the book of Joshua, the prince of the Lord of the host is depicted as a crew member of a vessel. This is very literal, but when we begin to deduce the etymology, he's actually a crew member of a vessel. This is an angelic vessel. So thus the title Sar, a prince, is shown to be compatible with a commander of a naval vessel. I just changed the slide. It is a commander of a naval vessel. This is in Hebrew, this is Sira, a boat. Now this is a bloodline that is considered as Sari, an alien or angelic. So the bloodline of the prince Sar is interconnected with Zari, an alien or an angel. The two terms are synonymous. So as we said before, the terminology Sar, a prince, infers Zari, which is a type of angel or type of alien. Furthermore, the description of prince of the host confirms that the angel described in the text considered literally as a descendant of Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of the host. So he is not merely just a commander or a captain of the Lord of the host, but actually we are referring to a descendant of Yahweh Sabaoth. So he is a prince of the Lord of the host. So we can see that the connection between the regal and the angelic bloodline is concordant once again with a sailor, and can be summarised in the following word list. Now this is a summary of the terms that we've been looking at in this lecture, and I know that we're going over some old ground here, but it is really important to put these words together so that we can see that it's unequivocal, that the terminology is found throughout all of the, particularly throughout this classical and the Semitic languages, and that there is this uniformity of belief in the ancient languages. So once again we see that there is this connection between the regal and angelic bloodline. So if I was to summarise the slide, we could say that Baal, a lord, is equated with Bahar, a sailor, and Baal, a lord. We see that there is this relationship with the fallen angels between Satan, which is refers to a political party, but also refers to the adversary or one who opposes, and as the connotation of a fallen angel. But the fallen angels themselves instituted governments, as is found in Shilton, which is governments. And therefore governments, by definition, are satanic. They are adversarial, they are oppositional in nature, and they encode this dichotomy between the upper and the lower house. The upper house being this angelic bloodline, and the lower house, which represents the bloodline of man. Again, we see that the bloodline of the Shaitani is correlated with Sultan, which is a type of ruler. In English, maybe the equivalent wordplay would be ferry, which is equated with a boat, but also the transliteration of Pharaoh in English is closely equated with a fairy. So the royal bloodline is once again deemed as being angelic. The fairy has wings, it originates from heaven. Again, if we look at the term angel, Malak an angel and Malak a sailor, Malak a king. The angels themselves, the highest grade of angels, are the seraphim. It's a plural noun and it refers to an angel, but also is closely equated with Sapan, a sailor, and Serif, which is a noble. So the seraphim and their lineage, just like the Shaitani and the Sultan, or Satan and Sultan, is correlated with Serif, a noble. In the ancient Aramaic and in the Old Semitic, Zari, an angel, a visitor, or an alien, they are once again identified with Sira, a boat, and Sar, a prince. Again, the terminology in Hebrew of Hammon, the angelic host, and Amara, a fleet, is cognizant with Amir, a commander, and Emir, a prince. In Greek, if we go back to the Greek language, angelos, an angel, literally a messenger, ago, to lead or direct, and aga, a lord. Again, we could say that there's a relationship between archos, a ruler, ukos, which is a cargo vessel, a large cargo vessel, and the archon, which are a type of angelic entity and type of angelic being. So, to conclude our investigation, I argued at the beginning of the lecture that ufology has been hampered in its search for answers by not fully comprehending the magnitude of the phenomenon. So, in other words, it's been very myopic. It's only just been responding to the phenomenon and how it appears. And because it's a transient phenomenon, it has told us very little about what this phenomenon actually is, where it originates from. But as we can see, this phenomenon goes back many, many centuries, and in particular, its representation in cultural artifacts is displayed in language and symbolism. So in other words, if we really do want to understand this phenomenon, we have to begin to deconstruct language and symbology. Now, the study of UFOs in general is very short-sighted. The discipline fails largely to grasp the historical implications of this otherworldly visitation. So it's about here and now. It's not actually looking at what we can glean from the historical record. The aliens, and I want to emphasise this, they have not just suddenly appeared here since 1945, and nor are they passively watching us, but they are actively engaged, and that they actively have an agenda. They have infiltrated human culture, and they are already here. So it's an historic. So we can see that this is an historical precedent from which all systems of control are established. So I want to closely look at what the French mathematician and scientist Jacques Vallée, whose research sums up the UFO paradox in Messengers of Deception, UFO Contacts and Cults. So this is what he had to say about the UFO phenomenon. And again, it ties in with this idea that the angels themselves, that there is this interaction between human culture and this other alien culture which has been instituted on Earth. He said, to quote Vallée, UFOs are real. They are physical devices used to effectuate human consciousness. Their purpose may be to achieve social changes on the planet through a belief system that uses systematic manipulation of witnesses and contactees, covert use of various sects and cults, control of the channels through which the alleged space message can make an impact on the public. So we can see here that Vallée's quotation is shown to be extremely accurate, and state-sponsored religions are historically a part of this complex process. So in other words, we're not just dealing with the occult and the message of the Space Brothers, but we can see actually that we are dealing here with the inception of state religion. So the inception of state religion itself is instituted by these beings. So I'd just like to quote once again Vallée. He said, the idea that leaders of a society have received their legitimacy from higher levels rather than from the people is fundamental to authoritarian forms of government. The kings of France and the Egyptian pharaohs were considered to be established by divine right. And here we can see on the slide, if we look at this early depiction, this early Sumerian depiction of the kingship, we can see that there is this sacrifice, but the sacrifice here is represented with this solar disk. Now this disk shape has connotations, as we will see when we develop the argument, but the circle itself not only has solar connotations, but has connotations of these angelic vessels. And we can see here that the king, the legitimacy of the bloodline of the king is legitimized through these angelic beings. And we can see also that the state religion and the practice of sacrifice itself is instituted through these beings. So we can see quite clearly that the command of the public channels and the subsequent manipulation of the masses has constantly occurred throughout man's recorded history. I have argued throughout this lecture that the control mechanism of the state has facilitated the takeover of human consciousness and has been directed primarily by external intelligences through the jurisdiction of governments and religious institutions. So in other words, mankind and his evolution has been directed, and it has been directed primarily through institutions which are governmental, through religious institutions. And we can also see quite clearly that the study of the UFO enigma is not separate from the state. So if we want to understand ufology better, we better begin to have a look at the symbology of the state, its mechanisms and esoteric symbolism, in order so that we can look at the belief systems. And in fact, we can argue that the alien component which has seeded itself into public culture, so the alien component is already here. It's found within the symbology of public culture, and it informs both our social and hierarchical structures. Now, the notion of a higher authority is highlighted succinctly by Professor Chandra, and I started the lecture with this quote, but I think it's also very significant to reiterate his points, because it's very useful, particularly when we're dealing with the issue of ufology. And I want the audience just to really think about what he's saying in context to the angelic sailors and their control over the minds of men. So once again, he said the following. He said, "I have given the idea of extraterrestrial visitation a great deal of thought. If they are here, then we must consider the realistic possibility that they have infiltrated human culture." In other words, if the aliens can get here, and they are here, then they must have infiltrated human culture. Okay, so maybe there's a theoretical argument about whether they are here or whether they could arrive here, but if there is such a thing of alien beings, and they do exist, and they can traverse the large distances of space to arrive to planet Earth, then he's saying that the real consideration must be that we must at least have an open mind about the fact that they are here, that they have infiltrated culture. And when we look into ancient mythology, into ancient religions, into the inceptions of governments, the argument is clear that there is this alien intelligence, this angelic intelligence, which has intercepted, which has impinged upon human culture. So in summary, the UFO phenomenon is part of a broader dialectic instrument through which the management of humanity is exercised. Alien infiltration within the remit of culture is subtle, and yet when viewed holistically is very difficult to dismiss academically. So in other words, when we look at mythology, there is this compelling argument to say that alien beings have interfered within the evolution of mankind. And it is clear from the sheer weight of the documented evidence that we are not dealing with a psychic aberration. So we're not just here dealing with human psychology, but we are dealing with something which is physical, which is tangible. We can say that there exists over 1 million photographs of UFOs. Concrete, their reality is substantiated throughout the world's many mythologies and religious scriptures. Their presence is testified to in thousands of classified reports from military personnel. The proof is overwhelming. The pertinent question then, which concerns us, is not are they here, but rather the relevant question is, what are they doing here, and why are they attempting to influence the minds of men through state-sanctioned laws and religion? Because these institutions, as I have shown, have been founded upon an angelic, an alien intelligence. So the proposition of alien arbitration is encoded into our cultural mascots, our religious belief systems and our symbols. I might also add that the current exopolitical position of looking towards our government or religious leaders for disclosure is extremely credulous. In other words, it's very naive. This secret has been classified for thousands of years, so we are not going to get any information from the government. This information has been carefully monitored and it has been carefully manufactured for hundreds of years. And as we can see, the alien question itself has been classified for thousands of years. So to actually think that our instigators are going to go public with this information is, in my opinion, extremely gullible. Disclosure can only come from the general public. We stand before the enormity of a phenomenon which has transgressed human space and has inserted itself into every aspect of human culture, into the very fabric of our social existence. Etymological evidence suggests that this force has rewritten the script of language. So not only have they rewritten our symbology, our codes of conduct, our codes of laws, our institutions, but they fundamentally have rewritten the script of human thought. And I argue that this is actually to control us, to control the subject, to control us. Now, the internal code of human thought, so they have hidden themselves within the script of human language, which is the internal code of human thought, a type of intellectual masquerade to serve its own agenda. So they have an agenda, and it's clearly not a human agenda. For centuries, the angels, variously the aliens, have concealed themselves. As we said before, I refer to these beings as the Angeliens, and they have concealed themselves from sight. A monolithic force that is both very real and is shown to intervene in history, casting a long shadow over humanity. We need not look to the skies to find evidence of alien civilizations. They are already here living amongst us, and are found in our institutions of worship and encoded within the state. They are also found within our leaders, within the monarchical structure. This bloodline, which is deemed as special, alien, angelic. So this is also encoded within the upper and the lower house. Our political systems, our adversarial systems, which represent this otherness, this angelic bloodline. So what is more, this cultural symbiosis is evident both in our monarchical systems, our political, our financial systems. It's encoded within our symbology. We can see now that this is a turning point for mankind. We are on the brink of major discoveries, and for the first time we are in a real position to deconstruct what this force is, and to lay it open and to have a real understanding of this force. This force which has laid shrouded since the inception of human civilization. So we can see that really a new day dawns. We can see that man is not alone. And this is the general premise of the argument. We can see instantly that when we look at the seraphim, they themselves are deemed as being serpentine in appearance. Seraph is a serpent, but this bloodline is deemed as coming from a sailor's bloodline, Sapan a sailor, Safina a ship. And the seraphim themselves are correlated with the serif, which is a noble. In the Hebrew and Arabic, Malak an angel, Malak a sailor, Melek a king. In Greek, Archos, Archos, which is a ruler, and we can see is correlated with Ukos, a vessel, and again Archon, which is this angelic bloodline. But again, the connotation of the Archon is of Ukos, this vessel, this strange vessel. In the Latin, we said that that the term Sabaoth, which is the angelic host, from Sevet, which is a crew, so in other words, a naval itinerant. But the Latin term hostis refers to an invading army, an army which is strange, which is different, which is an invasive army. And we see this also encoded within Islam as well. Man submits himself. Islam is the submission of man. The term Islam means submission, but the etymology submission also means peace. So man has submitted himself via a covenant, a matriarchal covenant, and the symbiosis is this human angelic lineage, which is this royal or monarchical lineage, and that man himself is controlled through the systems of government itself, which is deemed as the ship of state, and the government itself ties in with the temple sanctuary, as we said before, Norse boat and now a temple sanctuary. And to finish this lecture, I just want to quickly give a quote from the X-Files, because I think it's very pertinent with regards to the evidence, because quite clearly there is etymological evidence which substantiates the hypotheses that the angelic, the alien beings, they are one and the same thing, there's one and the same phenomenon, that they are here, that the evidence is already encoded within our symbology. So I'm going to now use an excellent quote from the X-Files. So in the X-Files there are two people. There's Mulder, who is an agent who is he's examining the X-Files, the files that cannot be explained, and we have Deep Throat, who is an informer who is informing Mulder about the conspiracy. Now Deep Throat himself, he says to Mulder, he says, "Mr. Mulder, why are those like yourself who believe in the existence of extraterrestrial life on this earth not dissuaded by all the evidence to the contrary?" And Mulder answers him and says, "Because all the evidence to the contrary is not entirely dissuasive." Deep Throat answers him back, "Precisely." Mulder then asks him, "They are here, aren't they?" Deep Throat replies, "Mr. Mulder, they've been here for a long, long time." So I just want to emphasize once again that we can show that they are here. They are definitely here. that, as what the astrophysicist Chandra said, if they are here, then they've infiltrated human culture, and we can see that they have infiltrated human culture. They have instituted governments, they have instituted the monarchical lineage. I just now would like to close and draw the audience's attention to a couple of products which are available on my website. I've recorded several DVDs on arcane symbolism, and also there is my book, The Murder of Reality, Hidden Symbolism of the Dragon, which deals with the Jinn and the Serpentagina. Thank you very much.